All right. So we're finishing up this sermon series called Rise, Hope in the Resurrection. And we're finishing that this week. And I kind of told you what it's about. The title of the sermon is Hope Shapes Us. And the idea behind that, the full phrase is, what you hope for shapes what you live for. You know, what your hope is and what is coming is what you actually kind of live for there. And to kind of show this well and try to show where the hope is and kind of wrapping all this up, I have to be honest with you. This idea that we're preaching about today is kind of one of my main ideas. One of the main things that kind of makes me tick and kind of putting together. The problem is when you're trying to teach something that you know really well and that you like really well, many times it's the worst sermon in the world, okay? So we'll see if that happens today or not. Let's see if I ruin Mother's Day, all right? like that. So we'll see if that happens. So in order to ruin Mother's Day today, let's go straight to Revelation and start talking about that, right? So we're looking at Revelation. Ed read it earlier, Revelation 21. And many of you are like, hey, we just read that last week, right, Brooklyn? Like over there? Listen. Brooklyn, it was her confirmation verse. This is what we're talking about today. I didn't steal it from you. We wrote this sermon series back in January, all right? All right, so it's over there. It just kind of worked out that way there. So we're in Revelation chapter 21. You're welcome to follow along if you want. It's mainly going to be in the bulletin and kind of skipping around a little bit. But the beginning of that is, then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no more sea. When you think of Revelation, do you think of like, oh my goodness, all this scary stuff that's in there and like, what's going on with it? And even this verse can be kind of weird. Like a new heaven and a new earth, it's like, okay, I can wrap my head around that. Or for the first that passed away, okay, like, all right, I can even wrap around that. And then the sea is no more? The sea, the oceans are no more? What's going on? Like, is Jensen Beach going to go away? I don't know what sins are going on over there, right? Any indiscretions? Daytona Beach, Panama City, you know, like all that, like, ooh, like what's going on over there? Well, the sea, is fishing actually bad? Like, why is the sea going to go away? Like all those things, all of you that like boats, sorry, you know? Like, how are we supposed to look at this? How are we supposed to understand this? So, I'm going to do some good old-fashioned training on it right now, all right? How to read Revelation. Revelation is actually a political cartoon, okay? It's a political cartoon. That's what it is. That's what it is. I know we look at it, we're like, oh no, like the sea is no more and all that stuff. Like, it's actually a political cartoon. And I can explain that. I had to scour the internet to find a non-offensive political cartoon. And I think I found it right here. Okay, so we got these two things, right? We can look at this and we know exactly what this means, don't we? It's like Republicans and Democrats vying for power in the government, right? It's like we look at it, we just know instinctually what it means. Now imagine this though. Let's put our head into a place. 2,000 years in the future, after this civilization collapses and everyone's like, it's on the backside of when Mad Max happens and all that stuff, like that we get on the other side and someone is like digging underneath one of your homes, or you know, in one of your homes it's like rubble, and they look at it and you thought this was funny today, so you printed it out, you found it and printed it out, and they find it and they look at it and are like, what was going on 2,000 years ago? They were dressing elephants and donkeys in pants? And what is going on here? Like, think about the context. You guys understood what this meant. Bam! Like that, right? You understood it. But think about if you didn't have any of this context. It wouldn't make any sense. You're like, what is, I don't get it. Revelation is like that. Revelation is like that. So we're 2,000 years removed, but it's saying all these things about a lot of it, the Roman government. It's saying a lot of stuff about all of that as we read it. And someday when I'm brave enough and really want to work hard for a little bit, we'll do a sermon series or something like that on Revelation. I'm still too much chicken about it because in order to do it, I would have to step on some toes. Yeah. All right. So it's a political cartoon. Let me show you some of the stuff that's a political cartoon as we go back to our verse. So then I saw a new heaven and new earth, for the first heaven and first earth had passed away, and there was no more sea. Let's see how many of you are smart. Cheryl, you're not allowed to participate in this. Sounds familiar, and you can't say Revelation 21:1. You can't. That's not allowed. It sounds like something else. Does anyone get? Can you guess? Cassie, 25 stars. Genesis chapter 1. Genesis chapter 1, right? So let's go all the way back to Genesis chapter 1. So we go back there. You know, it says at the beginning, and this is me bragging, Genesis 1:1 is Bereshit bara Elohim va'et shamayim v'ha'aretz. That's it in Hebrew. Like it's the words the Lord spoke. Not really, but like that's, and it's all the Hebrew I know. And so we have that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now look at the next thing. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep. All right? The deep, the sea, the ocean, right? And the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters, the deep, the ocean, the sea. Now let me ask you a question. Has anything been created yet? No. Look, next, it's shaded. I don't have it bolded. But God said, let there be light. That was the first day of creation. When he said, let there be light, then he said, separate the waters, the one from above, one from the bottom, high sky, bring the earth out to the waters, right? Then all the moons, celestial things, all that stuff. I can go through it all. I love Genesis 1. And but notice anything? So this is pre-creation, yet there's water, and the Spirit of God is hovering over this. Remember when I was talking about political cartoons and all that stuff? So what does all this mean? It means to the Hebrew people, deep inside their culture, you've heard me talk about this before, but the idea of the sea, the ocean, that is where chaos lived. That's where dysfunction lived. That's where it came from. Chaos reigned. And so when God began to speak into the creation and bring about the creation, it was about him reigning in the chaos, in him reigning in the destruction, in him reigning it in and bringing about goodness from the darkness and the chaos there from the waters over there. So when we think about Revelation now, and there was no more sea, you start seeing that, right? And think about it, it goes beyond even that. How did God destroy the world in the times of Noah? The sea, right? The waters over there. Him subsiding the difference in the creation, right? Bring it over there. Think about God's people when he ripped them out of slavery to Egypt. They wanted to cross the Red Sea. Now did he go, you guys can all be Aquaman for the next 5 minutes. Go across the waters, right? No. It says something very important. He says he split the waters, one on right and one on left, right? And it says they walked across on dry ground. Very important words, right? So you see that? They're not walking across anything wet there. No sea. God is hemming in the chaos as he's ripping them from that. So I think about this anytime with water. Think about Jesus. When he calms the storms of chaos and all those things, where the things that are reining us in, right? Like all that stuff, he's reining in and bringing glory into them, right? And I think we understand this because I think a lot of times we have these oceans of distress that are around us. We have an ocean of trouble, a sea of trouble, and we'd love for that sea of trouble to be gone away, right? When I think of a sea of trouble, I often think about this thing right here. This is my first car that I bought on my own, right? With my own money. This was a 1993 Nissan 240SX. It was cooler than a lot of your cars. And so it was great. It was fun. It got me through college and seminary, and it was great. It was great. And but as all good cars start happening, it started being an ocean of trouble, right? like started being in ocean trouble. In seminary, it got so bad that the clutch would only work for about 3 miles. And I was about a mile from the seminary, so that worked out, but it would just stop losing power. It was hydraulic, and my pea-brain mechanicalness was not able to figure out that problem. I was like, everything looks like it's hooked up. And it just wasn't working right. And Coley and I finally broke down. We're like, all right, let's get this thing fixed. I think we spent like $1,400 getting the thing settled, right? So got it all settled in, and we kind of declared, I think Coley declared a little louder than I did. It's like, this is it for this car. No more money is going into this car. Well, this picture was taken in Bentonville. We got this through seminary and on into the first couple months of Bentonville. And this beautiful picture is actually taken on top of a wrecker. And so we have it over there. This is actually our driveway in Bentonville when we were over there. And it was just an ocean of problems. Like, it just kept breaking down. It got to the point where we took it to a mechanic, and he told me, I don't know what's wrong with it. It just didn't have power. And he's like, I don't know what's wrong with it. Now, let me ask you a question. When it started giving me all kinds of problems like that, did I wash it?
Yes.
No. Gosh, no. Come on, Patty. Would you wash it? No. You thought I would because I'm weird like that, right? Yeah, I'm washing the car. I love it. Did I clean the trash out of it? No. It's like, ooh, it needs an oil change. Am I getting that oil change? No, that's a waste of however much money. This thing, we're getting rid of it. We're getting totally rid of it. We want it no more. And at the end of Revelation, it kind of seems that's like what's happening, right? Like whenever we kind of get to the end of life of something, we're like, I don't need it anymore. I don't need to clean the trash out of it because eventually it's going to be just taken away. And you guys remember that red hatchback that I used to have? That car was also cooler than a lot of your cars. I don't know. You got me beat with the Corvette. I'll admit it. But not quite. But that car, I had that. That's what I got after that one. And so you trade it in when it starts getting you problems, right? You're just like, I'm done with this thing. And a lot of times I think we kind of have that sense about the creation that's around us. That creation, the creation that's around, it's like, this all is just going to be destroyed, all this stuff. And so why do I need to take care of it? Man, Dale down the street, he's a sorry human being. He's terrible. Can you believe what he does? He mows his grass at 6 a.m. I always make fun of that because it's dumb. But we kind of treat people like that. We're like, I'm done with him. He's going to go into Sheol and burn and all that stuff. The lake of fire was made for people like Dale, right? And we're like, we just don't need to spend any time for him or with him or whatever like that. And he's to be done with it. We don't need to take care of it. And the earth, if it's all going to be just destroyed, why do we need to take care of it? And we can kind of get a sense of that here in our verse, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, new heaven and new earth. Yay, all right, we will be taken away. I'll fly away, oh glory, I'll fly away. I make fun of that song a lot. I'm not a big fan of it. That's it. And if you love it, you can love it. That's fine. It's fine. You like bad things. And so we, but we're like, oh yeah, we don't have to take care of this anymore. We could treat this and just get whatever we can out of this place before we go on to the better one. But there's something interesting going on. If we fast forward a little bit to verse 5, Jesus says that he's the one who's seated on the throne, Jesus. He goes, behold, I am making all things new. This is the interesting term right there. Because what we're talking about today is what you hope for shapes what you live for. And if your hope is in something that if this is always just going to be destroyed, I'm going to turn this car in and get something flashy and new coming up. You're not going to change the oil in it. You're not going to clean it. You're not going to do all of that. I think we all kind of understand that about ourselves. And you would be right if new was this word. In the Greek, that new idea is neo. It's kind of that idea of new car, getting something new. But that's not the word that's used there. The word that John is using when Jesus says, behold, I am making all things new, is kaino. Kaino, and it means restored or renewed. See that? It means restored or renewed. And I think we know this, and I think we love this. I think we can see that there's kind of even a little bit of a war going between us, where it's like, yeah, the kind of the bad side of us, the sinful side, kind of like, yeah, just get rid of it. Just get rid of it. It doesn't matter. But there's this nugget of truth. It's probably the image of God screaming from the midst of us, like the Spirit of God in us going, no, what the truth is that we restore things. And I can prove it to you. About 1983, 85, my friend's grandfather pulled this thing out of an abandoned garage in the middle of the woods of West Virginia. It's a 32 Ford, right? Should we just throw that thing away? Scrap metal it, right? Get a sweet $75 for it. Is that what we should do to it? No, right? No. Yeah, like that's over there. Who have you bought this new when you were in your 20s? Just kidding. Just kidding. like that. God's like, be quiet and be careful, you're treading. Like that. So like that's, but yeah, like we look at these things, we're like, oh man, we should restore those things. We should restore those things. And that's like a good feeling that we have in it. This is the same car in 2003. He even found the original engine that was associated with that early VIN number, right? He found that, restored that thing, and so there it was, right? He restored it, and there's something, everyone went, oh, right? Because you can almost see the glory and the honor that comes with the restoration. Like, yeah, it's cool getting something new, and I'm like, listen, I get it. Like they're getting that neo, but to restore something, to restore it, there's something more to that essence, and that is what John is talking about in Revelation, at the end of the apocalypse, at the end of all of that, is that God isn't going to throw away everything. He's going to restore it. He's going to make it like it's new again. He's going to find those original engines, right? And get them started again and get them going again. Like he's going to restore all those things. And you can see it all through Jesus' life. Can you not? Like he looked around and he was constantly restoring all these things. One of the things I heard this week was this person that was talking about like disabled ministries. And they said, oftentimes we look at Jesus healing, like he was healing people of their disabilities or something like that. But what you saw Jesus mainly doing was healing people so that the society would no longer say, you can't be close to God because of that. Because think about the woman who was bleeding all the time. She wasn't able to come into the temple and worship her God because of her ailment, and he healed that. Lepers healing one after another, right? Like healing them because of societies that said, no, go to the edge of society, you're going to get us all sick, right? He's like, no, you can be part of the image of God together with others. He's bringing them into community, into glory, into goodness. And he's healing blind people because oftentimes we are blind to things. He's like, hey, that person sees, do you? Right? It's all about him bringing glory and bringing you back closer to God to restore the relationship between those people and God. That's a beautiful way of looking at it. I never looked at it like that. Right? And it's beautiful. And that's what we see that Jesus does. But what's interesting is we still have that thing where we want to get rid of things that we disagree with. And I think that's kind of what we saw happen to Jesus. And we have that big question that's asked of Pilate in the Gospels. It's like, do you want the way of restoration or do you want the way of destruction? Do you want Barabbas or Jesus? Do you want peace or do you want an insurrection? Right? And we chose Barabbas. Give us Barabbas. And Jesus died. Jesus died. And what is beautiful about God and the way he works in the world is that even when we choose the wrong thing in the choose your own adventure that he's all got us in here, he still brings us back in line. That he raised Jesus from the dead. He raised him and has made us all part of himself, all part of that resurrection. That because God is bringing the recreation, the recreation, recreation are the same word, and it confuses me. The redemption, the resurrection. He's bringing all the re's back to you and I. And the God of creation, when he looks out into the world, he says that I'm the great mechanic, I am the original creator, and I can fix it. And I love what that says about all of us, is that none of us are so far beyond that we can't be brought in, that we can't be restored, that we haven't done something so bad that we're just going to get thrown away and thrown into that lake of fire, right? That's what I need to be, that God goes over there. And if he says that about you, and some of you I know are like a little iffy, then he definitely says it for Dale down the street, right? That he says it for Dale down the street, just like he says it to us. That he goes, I can fix that, I can renew that, I can bring it new, just like that car was. And so our hope, what we hope for shapes what we live for, and what our hope is that the God who is making everything new. And if we don't think that all of this is going to be destroyed, then when we are taking part of the redemption act of God, we're doing things like cleaning up the side of the road, right? We're doing things like feeding the hungry. We're doing things like smiling at the checkout person at Publix. We're doing things like you two had lots of small businesses and all that stuff, having good Dunkin' Donuts and decent KFCs, right, Claude? Like over there? Like doing things like that. Doing things like building a care center for those that are struggling with Alzheimer's and their families, to bring that beauty into the world. That God, we know the promise, and our hope is in the promise of the future. And that if we are taking part in the restoration and the resurrection now, then we are acting as the hands and feet of Jesus. That it's all not for nothing, because all of this is going to be restored. We pray for this every week, right? In the Lord's Prayer, we said, Father, your will be done on earth just as it is in heaven. We're praying that here looks like there, and that here at the end of Revelation, we're seeing that those two become one. It's beautiful. And everything we do brings beauty into it. I mean, you're a pilot, right? Yeah. Bringing beauty by actually landing a plane good, right? Letting people go on vacations, let people go on business deals, letting all these things happen, being able to bring people around, bringing beauty into the creation, right? That's what we see, and we can see and have hope in that. So that neighbor of yours, what all this means is that neighbor that lives across the ocean, across that great sea, he matters. That dog in your neighborhood that barks all night and keeps you up, that little bugger, he'll be redeemed, and he matters. That lake that you used to swim in when you were a kid, that lake will be redeemed, and it matters. That sinner in your life, that big one that can't get any better, that's always struggling with it, you, yourself, that sinner matters and will be redeemed. Jesus is making all things new. And I think that's good news. And we'll end right there. Jesus, we thank you for that you love us so much.